The African American Legend series highlights the accomplishments of blacks in areas varied as politics, sports, aviation, business, literature, and religion. We'll explore how African Americans have succeeded in areas where they've been previously excluded because of segregation, racism, and lack of opportunity. I'm your host, Dr. Roscoe C. Brown, Jr., and with us today is Jae Gardner, founder and CEO of the Ivy Key. Welcome to African American Legends, Jay.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Now, you're the founder and the CEO of Ivy Key.
That's right.
Tell us how this concept came up and what is Ivy Key?
Surely. Well, I've been tutoring for over a decade. And when I started the company, after I graduated from Harvard, I started with another fellow classmate of mine, Chris McConnell. And it was great because we loved tutoring. We loved educating students. And at the time, the economy was so bad. And we felt as though there needed to be a sort of change in the academic paradigm, especially here in New York. And funny enough, we're two guys in my mother's attic trying to figure out a way to rub two sticks together, right, and make a fire. And we thought to ourselves, and we're both from Ivy League school, we both went to Harvard. Let's think of a great name. We were like the Ivy Key because, we want to unlock doors to success. And we started, going from school to school, calling them, letting them know about the service that we could provide, and doing it for free. And you'd be surprised how many people thought we were lying. Two Harvard guys want to come and teach your students SAT prep for free, and they thought it was a joke. And one school, School of the Future, down here on the Lower East Side, said, hey, you guys can come in and work with our students. And we worked with them, provided them with a program, and we got their students up 200 points on the SAT for free. And after that, they were raving about us to other schools, and we went from working essentially with 15 students to now being proud to say that we work with 2,000 kids.
Now, tell me, what do you really do? Because you say you want to encourage them to go to Ivy League schools and be prepared. And one of the things you want to do is to help them improve their SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Test scores. What do you do that other people don't do?
Well, I think it's not just tutoring, it's mentoring for us, right? It's not just saying that 2 + 2 = 4. It's about how can you use that knowledge, right, to get to the next level of academia or in terms of your professional career. So I think that when you look at other test prep companies that be out there, they're just trying to teach the students for the test. We're trying to teach our students for life. And it's important for us. And I think that that's why they really connect with us more so than other organizations because, we may be Ivy League grads that I have on my staff, but they're dynamic people. They're people who excel not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. And students gravitate towards that. And
tell me, what do you specifically do to help these young people get the skills?
With our coursework that we have, where our curriculum is designed, it's not just your standard look at your SAT question, go through it. We really build up their core competency for math.
Well, what are the main areas?
Well, with critical reading and writing, working on their essay writing, making sure that their grammar skills are improved because grammar's not taught in school anymore. And when it comes to math, honestly, number sense. A lot of students really don't know their times tables, especially in the 11th and 12th grade, and making sure they understand what numbers, number orders, multiplication, division, fractions, something that's hugely a hindrance to a lot of African American students. They have a huge, tough time dealing with fractions and getting them to understand geometry and fall in love with learning. And you would find out, when we first started the organization, we were so misguided thinking that students knew a lot more than they did, just because we were thinking about at that time in our life when we were 11th graders, 10th graders.
Now talk about that. You say students think they know a lot more than they actually do.
Yeah.
Now why is that?
It's a broken system, quite frankly.
Well, let's face it, the students themselves are functioning, whatever the system is.
Yeah.
And if somebody gives you 5 square plus 20 square, they ought to be able to figure it out.
You would think so. Without a calculator, they can't.
Well, that's exactly the point. I happen to work in statistics and measurement sometimes. And one of the things I note is that many students are always dealing with calculators.
A lot.
And it's just like people depend on computers to give them their directions.
Exactly.
So that's part of the progress that we have that has an unintended consequence. How do you deal with those unintended consequences?
Well, I just remove the calculator. See, I remove the calculator.
Now, the other thing that I do when I teach, I don't use any number over 10.
It's funny, I like using numbers between 1 to 13.
Okay,
I think if they can understand those times tables, I mean, honestly, if you're doing something like 17 times 16,
Yeah.
you do that in your head, great.
Yeah.
But that's what the calculator's for.
You're right.
You know, but if I'm asking you 9 times 12, you should know that's 108.
Well, you're exactly right. Now, what do you do in terms of translating this into their image, their self-image?
Well, I guess, I mean, for me, whenever we're talking to students, it's making sure to reflect on our own life, right? That we're in front of the classroom with them. I think that's really big. You know, in the first class, we always like to break down. We tell students you can ask us any 3 questions about our life that you just want to know. Because we want to demystify the notion that getting to Harvard, getting to Yale, you have to be this perfect individual. You know, we like to let our students know that being smart, you know, being well-spoken, that along that path of success, you're going to have hiccups. And you need to understand it's about rebounding from those hiccups, because far too often, especially our black youth, they feel as though it's impossible for me to be Barack Obama, right? I'm never going to go to Harvard. I'm never going to go to Yale. I'm never going to have that opportunity. Therefore, the idea that I could be president one day is just a foreign-going notion. And I think that what's important is letting them know that, no, there are hiccups that he's gone through and that you will go through as well, but it's about rebounding from that. And that's why I said the mentoring is so important for us, because if we just taught them that 2 + 2 = 4, you can get that from anyone. You don't really need to come to the Ivy Key or Kaplan or Princeton Review. But what you get from us is our life stories. Is you get our conviction.
Well, okay, life story. What is your life story?
Well, my life story is I'm a New York kid who's, you know, been around New York, you know, from Long Island to Brooklyn to Manhattan to Queens. And my life story is that I had come from a Caribbean background. My mother's from Jamaica, my father's from Antigua, and my father was a professor, and he was very adamant about education. You know, by the time I was 5, I knew my time scale was from 1 to 12. I couldn't play outside. And he wanted to make sure that, you know, my mind was sharp. You know, I skipped a grade, skipped kindergarten. You know, and I graduated from high school when I was 16 and got to Harvard when I was 16. So for most people, you know, that was just like, how are you moving that fast? My father believed that at the end of the day, I came from Antigua, I didn't have much, and I want to make sure that my children have the best. So I went to Harvard, my brother went to Yale, my sister went to Brown, and a lot of people.
Well, we would say that you were advantaged. Many of the kids that you deal with didn't have that type of intact family, that type of motivation.
Didn't have that support network.
So how do you translate your experience, which is an advantage experience, into their experiences, some of your candidates' experiences, which are not advantage? How do you build on that?
A lot of it's listening, you know, listening to their story. I think a lot of times students hate to be lectured. You know, I want to have a conversation with them. And I tell my students all the time, you may learn from me, but I feel like I'm learning twice as much from you. You know, I have one student, Glenn, who I work with, and he's homeless. You know, he lost his mother and father at a very young age. A lot of his friends are in gangs and constantly, you know, going in and out of jail that his friends are, and he's trying to stay on the straight and narrow. And a lot of times he'll tell me stories that I've never heard in my life. I never had to deal with waking up and thinking, oh, my friend shot. You know, where am I going to sleep? Am I going to get another meal? And I think that hearing that allows me to identify more with him, understand his story, and then figure out where there is that overlap, where there is that parallel. And for me, it's just as much as hearing about his story and figuring out how I can be his support network, it's about showcasing that to him and not just saying it. So I'll bring him by the Harvard Club to make him feel as though, Glenn, this is not excluded. You're not excluded from this area. You can come here. You know, this is part of your world as well because it's part of my world. And I'm your support network now.
But some of the students that you work with are sort of self-selected. They wouldn't come to you if they didn't want to improve themselves.
Exactly, right.
How do you select the students? How do they come to you?
Well, it depends, right? When we work with certain schools, they'll take it out of their budget, and then the guidance counselors or principals, you know, they have a great relationship with the students, so they'll know the ones who are gung-ho, the ones who really want to take to the next level of academia. But when we have students who sign up and parents who really want their child to do well, you know, those children come in wanting to know the answers. They come in wanting to hear everything and absorbing it. And that's important because I always say it's not about you being the all-star or the valedictorian in class. It's about saying, I want to be that person, right? It's having that ambition, having that drive. Without that, I mean, there's really nothing much else. You know, I want to imbue passion to my students. And at first that passion is learning. I want to hopefully believe that that will foster into something else, whether that's you want to get into law, you want to get into medicine, you want to get into business. It's important that they understand that education and learning is a lifelong process.
It is a lifelong process, but it has to build on something.
Of course.
Apparently, these students must have some background, otherwise they wouldn't be there striving to go to a better college.
I mean, you'd be surprised. Some of the students that we work with, I mean, especially the Title I institutions, you have a lot of kids who come from single-parent households, sometimes temporary housing, and what they want is just a better life. Less
And
so.
why do they think that an Ivy League school will give them a better life than, let's say, a state school?
Well, because when they're reading the newspaper and they hear about Barack Obama, Harvard graduate, Mitt
But
Romney.
when they hear about Colin Powell, a City College of New York graduate, how are they going to
Right, but they hear about Colin Powell, right? They hear about him being more of a politician, less so, about what school he went to. And if more people knew about that.
Well, he does talk about it. He does. He's very.
I know,
very
but a lot of times students will just shut that out, though. Because.
Well, see, I'm at the City University of New York, and we are the People's University. And,
yeah, of course.
and last year, we probably had more people who got Nobel Prizes who graduated from City University than they're from Harvard.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. But anyway, you're really talking about upward mobility.
Of course.
And upward mobility is not just academic ability, but it's also opportunity. It's also knowing the lifestyle and those various soft skills. How much do you work on soft skills, and which soft skills do you work on if you do?
Oh, mock interview questions, interviewing, that's important. A lot of students don't know how to project. They don't know how to make eye contact. They're not confident in themselves. So a lot of times you'll hear them talk and they go, well, I'm not sure about this. And they're looking down, they're mumbling their words. And we make sure to ask some questions such as, what's your greatest accomplishment in life thus far? And a lot of times they'll sit there and they'll pause. They'll have a hard time really thinking, what was my greatest accomplishment in life so far? And
If I asked you that, what would you say?
Right, today.
You looked away from it.
No, my greatest accomplishment, I will say this. I gave a speech to Derek Jeter's Leaders. It's a non-for-profit organization he started. And after I gave a speech to the students, one student came afterwards and he said, how can I be you when I grow up?
That's nice.
And it was the most humbling thing I ever heard from anyone. And, for me, that was the greatest accomplishment I ever had in my life, having a student actually telling me that, I was in some way sort of like an idol to them, that they would hope to be me in the future. And, that just gave me more fire to work even harder after I heard that.
Well, that's an interesting thing about athletics and entertainment. Many of the people we admire are in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And the people who are admiring them and spending the money to see them are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah.
So it is life is a journey, not a destination.
Yes, my father always said that.
And so therefore, you're helping these young people on the journey. Now, in terms of how you can translate some of your techniques into the larger school system, how would you go about that?
Well, I think what we've been doing with a lot of school networks, kind of like College Bound Initiative, and they work with different schools, is trying to make the culture of education, and especially when it comes to standardized test prep, part of the school culture, right? For instance, instead of saying we're just going to prepare you for the SATs 3 months before the May exam, it's going to be something that's going to be part of your junior year from September, where every week you're going to be seeing 10 questions, whether it's math, whether it's critical reading, whether it's writing, just so that language, you become familiar with it. No different than if it was Spanish or German. And a lot of times what happens with these students is that they don't look at this material, they don't look at this curriculum, and then May comes, they take the SATs, and they go, oh, I didn't know what they were asking me. I just put down any answer. I just made drawings with the bubbles. And what we need to do, especially in the public school system, is to make that part of their weekly curriculum. What I find out with students too often nowadays is that they're treating school like a daycare center, honestly.
But the fact is that it's hard to answer a question if you've never been taught the information.
No, but what you find out is that a lot of these students have been taught the information, they're just not taught to understand the language in which the question's being asked. For instance,
Give an example.
So we could say, a question may say, square, diagram above has area 144. What is the perimeter of this square? A lot of students would go, well, square has area 144. I never heard that sort of language before. But if they said, the square has an area of 144,
there you go.
And then just that little article right there, right? You having of goes, people go, oh, wow, that's what they're asking me. And that's what I want to make sort of acclimate my students to, right? Understand the language of the test, whether it's the GRE, whether it's the GMAT, whether it's the SATs, ERBs, right? They're never asking you something that's outrageous. And one thing that people never get or understand about standardized tests is that, first and foremost, they're not trying to trick you. They're trying to find out what you know. And essentially all the questions are kind of singular focus, right? If you don't understand that 2 + 2 = 4, then when I ask you what's 4 squared, you're not going to get that because I know you don't know the first step. You know, if I'm asking you about the area of a triangle and I know that you don't know that a triangle has 3 sides, or, you know, Pythagorean theorem, right? If you don't know these concepts, I know you're not going to get to the answer, but I'm just trying to figure out, do you understand these concepts?
And going back to teaching now, a good teaching would do all the things that you're talking about.
But you know, it's not just about instruction, it's about inspiration. And that's the difference.
Let's bring that back again, because it is about instruction. If
But
they've never told them about
but it's not just about instruction, right? It's about inspiration. A lot of times, you know, you can have a teacher that's monotone, right? Vapid in their experience, and you sit there in the classroom, you fall asleep. And they could be telling you how to make $1 million in one day, but you go, I don't want to listen to you. And what's happening is that they have teachers who are in the classroom now who are treating their job as a gig, you know, treating it as a part-time job. So they're just going up in there, they're saying, oh, what do I need to teach you today? Oh, 2 + 2, oh, you guys didn't get it, at least I taught it. You know, you're supposed to galvanize the youth.
But most teachers don't do that. Most teachers really do try. They may not have the right technique, but they do try. Now, in your organization, other than yourself, who are very inspirational and I think very smart, who else do you have working with you?
Well, I have 40 other tutors who work with me. They're all from Ivy League schools, and we get a majority of our tutors and instructors from Columbia Teachers College, which is, you know, highly beneficial that it's here in the city. But we have people from Princeton, Yale.
They're graduates.
Yeah, all graduates, and it's varying. We have people who are, you know, recent graduates who are coming to New York who've been, you know, teaching for a while. They've tutored for a while, and they really want to, you know, get more into the educational system. But then we have people who have their, you know, master's, PhD, who felt as though they haven't been in the classroom in a while, and they want to get back in front of students and really work with them. So, you know, I like to make sure that my staff is very dynamic and very diverse, you know, between males, females, you know, different, you know, activities they do outside the classroom. You know, we have people on staff who have written plays. You know, we have people on staff who have climbed, I mean, some of the craziest mountains, you know, in the world, and I need them to have that so when they're in the classroom and students ask them, hey, you know, what have you done outside of teaching me? They go, oh, I've done X, Y, Z. And what I really want to do is make sure the students understand that being smart and being cool are not mutually exclusive, that they're one the same, that the Jay-Z's of the world and the Barack Obamas of the world are hand in hand. And you need to understand that they're both intelligent, that they both have flair, and they can, you know, they both have charisma, and that for you to be someone who's going to be influential and positive member of society in the future, you have to have both sides.
Now, if anyone who's watching this show decides they want to volunteer to come to the Jae Gardner Ivy League Key, how do they get in touch with you?
Oh, well, they can just go on our website, you know, at theivyKey.com, and, you know, click on the info link and contact us and, you know, set up an interview and sit down with me, and I can see if, you know, you're good enough to be in front of one of my students.
Now, to what extent do you use extracurricular activities, sports, drama, music, etc., in getting your students motivated and keeping them motivated?
I mean, I do impress upon them to do a lot of extracurricular activities, especially within school or outside of school. And I like to, you know, reiterate to them that, you know, Harvard could fill up their class, you know, 4 times over with 2400s and 4.0s, but there's a reason why they don't. You know, it's about being a leader outside of the classroom. And we really push that upon them, whether it's, you know, being active.
What kind of experiences do you give them? Do you give them? Do you take them to plays? Do you take
well,
them
I mean, when we
concerts?
Yeah, with the mentoring, you know, sometimes we'll do that with students who really want to say get into the arts. You know, take you to a museum. You know, take you to a play. That depends. But in terms of the classroom setting that we do with like our test prep, that's more focused on, you know, just the test at hand. And the mentoring that we do there is more so figuring out what is it you want to do in the future. You know, for instance, I want to get into fashion. Great. You know what? Here's some internships that you can do at Louis Vuitton over the summer, Gucci over the summer, so you can understand, is this really the industry for me? And that's more so what we like to provide for our students, a proper roadmap, you know, for their future. And if they want to get into athletics, you know, we will steer them in the direction of, you know, Nike camps that may be announced out that they can do during the summer.
But one thing about the arts, particularly black drama, it does delve into the depth of the black experience and talk about how people did move ahead. For example, there have been plays about the Tuskegee Airmen, there have been plays about Martin Luther King, there have been plays about Frederick Douglass. It seems to me that that would be another way to broaden out your program.
Well, definitely. I mean, we're always looking for new ways and new ideas, obviously to, expand just the horizons of our students. So, if that's something that we could add and is beneficial for my students, it's something I'm always open to.
Now, what about the camaraderie among the students? Do they come together, or is it individual and they don't really see each other?
Well, I mean, you got to remember, right? High school, everyone's, has their own cliques, right? And it's segmented. So, when we do the programs at a school, for instance, like Vanguard High School here in the city, people who are friends, they stick together, have their little enclave of like 3 or 4 people, and they'll work together in their little group. But the students, we like to galvanize and get them to work together, having that call and response and knowing that we're all in the same fight together, right? If you're in a classroom for 3 hours with the same group of 20 people, you start to realize, hey, we're all in the same fight together. And you see that with the students helping each other, and we really advocate that, like, peer-to-peer, evaluation.
To what extent have you done any work with the 100 Black Men School, the Eagle Academy? They have several all-male schools in the city that aspire to do the same things you're talking about. Have you done any work with them yet?
Well, it's funny that you say Eagle Academy, because I know that College Bound Initiative, I'm pretty sure that they have Eagle Academy under their purview. And I know that we were thinking about possibly working with them this year, but we haven't worked with them yet. No.
Well, that's something we can look forward to.
Exactly, definitely something to look forward to.
Now, what about politics? Do you work on their value system that deals with giving back, participating, respecting ideas and people of various backgrounds?
Well, yeah, I mean, for us, it's extremely important. The high school that I went to really impressed upon us that it's about being meant for others.
What school did you go to?
I went to Regis High School here in the city, and what they told us throughout the entire 4-year experience was, hey, you're gonna do well here. You're gonna go off, you're gonna be successful, and we're not gonna charge you a dime. All that I ask you is that you're a good man. All that I ask is that you as a learning man go out and educate your community. All that I ask is that you make the lives of those around you better because you've been blessed and you're privileged. Okay. And we always took that to heart, from the community service that we did in high school.
What's the criterion for a good man? Or a good woman, for that matter?
I think someone who realized that community is first, that, and whether that community may be, whether it's family, as you see as that community, or the community that in which you live, that as long as you support your community and you're there, and you don't put yourself first, you start to realize that life's pretty rich, that you learn from others' experiences, that when you're focusing on the problems of others and how to resolve that, you start to realize that your problems really aren't that important anymore. That it's
well, in one sense, you have a mixed message. You say put yourself first, yet you're working them.
Well, not putting yourself first. So I'm saying it's not to put yourself first, right? It's about focusing on other people, right? Focusing on your community and realizing that your issues aren't that important, right? That they're not as big or as grand as you make in your own mind, because when you hear the problems of others and you make an effort and you want to resolve those problems for them, with my students, the best time I ever have is when they have that ah moment. Oh, I didn't get this. I didn't know that 2 + 3 was 5. Thank you for teaching me that. Because I'm so focused on their issues that I forget about my own personal problems. I forget about the things that may befall me in the day or in the week because I have my head down focusing on their issues. And I tell everyone all the time, if you support your community and you give to them, they will hold you up. So you'll never be able to fall down. And if you make them, just whether it's your family first, it's important just to give to others, because as much as you give to the world, that old adage, right, you get just as much back or even more. And I know that first and foremost in my own life. When we went out and provided free tutoring, in an attic, going, we're just going to help our community. Now, today I'm sitting down with you.
Now, how are you going to recruit some more of the upwardly mobile African Americans to do this? People who graduated from Harvard and Yale who are doing very well. How are you going to recruit them to help build the community?
Well, I think it's, just a lot of advocacy work, making sure that we're constantly out there just speaking, like shows like this, so they see it and they hear it, or being in the schools, making sure the graduation speeches, because that's what people respond to. Far too often we just see, just Barack Obama, and that's it. And we have no other black leaders that are out there, especially young black leaders. I wish that was more out there. Our young black leaders are.
But look at the set here.
Exactly.
We got black leaders for a long time.
It's very true, but we don't have any young black leaders right now. Young black leaders outside of the world of sports and entertainment. And that's what I hope, at least in my journey in life, is to showcase that you can be very successful if you don't dribble a basketball. You can be very successful if you're not coming up with the next, best song. You can be very successful, very influential, and still be out there for the community, but you have to figure out what your passion is and how you can make others' lives better, not just your own. I mean, I come from, a society, especially at Harvard, where it's money first, right? It's about being that banker, being that lawyer, being that expensive doctor. And that's what's impressed upon us, whether it's in a...
I'm sure the president of Harvard would disagree.
Probably.
The purpose of it is to show
But,
a well-rounded, contributing citizen
but that's
who's rich.
Exactly, but that's what happens with that environment, right? You leave and I have Harvard, so now I'm gonna go get my six-figure job or my $1 million job. And, much like Michelle Obama always, professes, right? It's not about just moving forward, but looking back and grabbing back and pulling people forward with you. That to me is really what showcases true strength and true power.
Okay, that's a good message to end our discussion. We've been talking with Jae Gardner, the founder and CEO of Ivy Key.
Yes.
Congratulations.